do more than condemn red tagging.
The idea is to threaten, the idea is to intimidate. Yun naman ang ginagawa na nila no? Threatening, intimidating. Yung sinabi ni Clarita na hindi tama yung nire-red tag, dapat kay Clarita tuwing may lilitaw na ganyan, lilitaw din siya, sabihin niya, hindi tama yan.
The Interior Department is defending the government's move to block websites that have alleged links to terrorist groups.
Ang ginamit po nating basihan dyan is yung Anti-terrorism Act. Dahil meron na pong designation ng Anti-terrorism Council declaring the CPP, NPA, NTF, and all of its allied organizations as terrorist organizations, kaya po natin pinablock sa National Telecommunications Commission.
Government is standing by its decision to block websites that have alleged links to terrorist groups. Media workers are calling this an attack on press freedom and on due process. Is it? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to The Chiefs. Ako po si Roby Alampay. Kasama rin po natin from Quezon City. She's joining us online. Luchi Cruz-Valdes of News 5. Kasama po natin sa Mandaluyong, dito sa studio. Lingao of One News. Tas maya-maya, sasamahan rin po tayo ni Pamintuan of the Philippine Star. Chiefs, good evening.
Good evening.
Happy Thursday.
Ed, wala pa si Ami. Ano bang headline bukas?
Isang araw na lang, Biyernes na. Well, of course, a lot of follow-ups dun sa,
Good news.
Good news, diba? Meron ka ng good news. A lot of follow-ups dun sa NTC order to block certain websites. We've had other people weighing in. Among them, for example, retired Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio, saying na questionable yung decision.
Tapos, we will of course get into that later. But some other news, meron tayong Department of Transportation Secretary incoming. That's Jaime Jimmy Bautista. Formerly, and most people know him from Philippine Airlines. Tapos sa LTFRB.
And the USEC ng DOTR, si Cesar Chavez, formerly from the camp of Isko Moreno. So, surprise.
Meron na rin tayo ngayon sa, sa LTFRB.
PNR.
Yes. And then you also have,
Oh, I see.
Pero tama-tama yung pagdating nito because tama-tama yung mga point nito because among other things, people are asking itong mga libreng sakay programs and so on, magtutuloy pa ba yan? Of course, those are many of the questions.
And of course, yung pending petitions for fare increases for taxis, buses, and jeeps.
Well, maraming katanungan we'll have to talk about, and inevitably we will be talking about those plans in the coming days. But right now, we're still talking about what Ed led off with. One of the websites recently blocked by the NTC for their supposed ties with the Communist Party was Bulatlat. And we have with us its managing editor. Welcome to the Chiefs, Len Olea.
Good evening, the Chiefs.
Hi, Ms. Len.
Ms. Olea, i-clarify ko lang at this point. At this point, what is the official communication? What is the official basis or charge or whatever the status is for the blocking of your website?
We have not received any legal basis or prior notice regarding the blocking of the website. We only learned about the NTC memo last June 21 because we requested an IT company for their reason for blocking our website. So there was yet no official reply as of now from the National Telecommunications Commission and other government agencies. We wrote to NTC, I think, June 20, and we have not received any official reply.
Okay, well, nothing official, but let's get straight to what they have been telling media and the public. They're saying you are an affiliate of terror groups, particularly the designated terrorism tags on the Communist Party of the Philippines and the New People's Army. What is your official response to those charges?
We see this as a continuation of the red tagging done against us. I remember the last time I had been a guest here was also about red tagging, and Undersecretary Lorraine Badoy red tagged us on national TV. So it's really part of the campaign to discredit legitimate sources of information, including Bulatlat and other media outfits.
But Len, at the same time,
Since that time,
well, Len, at the same time kasi naglabas ng nag-cite ng quotations sa yung grupo ni Badoy at ni Esperon, although attributed naman daw to Pinoy Weekly. And their allegations were that the quotations that they cited coming from Pinoy Weekly tended daw to show support for armed rebellion.
Nakakatawa po yan kasi kung babasahin yung buong article, ay parang pamamaraan ng mamamayan sa paglaban. And in fact, parang historical facts naman yung nilagay nila doon na sa totoo lang, meron talagang armed resistance. At kahit sa Pilipinas. So, we think it's a legitimate coverage, yung paglathala ng mga balita tungkol sa CPP, NPA, NDF, and should not be treated as being friendly to terrorists. No? In fact, naalala ko yung mga pinakamagagandang dokumentaryo dati, no? The Chief Ed Lingao pa tungkol sa mga interview sa NPA. So, ang nakakatakot dito, parang gusto ba nilang palabasin na anyone na humingi ng interview at mag-ere ng ganitong klase ng mga istorya ay ituturing na nilang mga komunista or worse ay terorista.
Actually, that's
pero
yeah. Go ahead.
kung interview ni Ed Lingao yun, I mean, iba naman ang mga documentary na.
Yes, yes.
Are you saying, for example, that I just want to know, no? Because Ed Lingao, of course, we interview NPAs, but I mean, we have never been red tagged. But is that your experience? Na a bit because there's interviewing NPAs and there's doing a story on the Communist Party of the Philippines. And, there's such a thing as inciting and using Communist Party propaganda to get people to join the CPP. I mean, there is a line, and we do know where that line is. So, meron bang nangyari sa'yo na yung kung ano man ang ginawa ng dokumentaryo na pinanood mo, halimbawa kay Ed na gumawa kayo ng ganon, tapos feeling nyo on the basis of that na red tag kayo?
Hindi po namin ma-pinpoint exactly kung ano ba yung articles na sinasabi nilang inciting to terrorism. But I can cite at least two stories na naiisip ko ngayon. Before we learned about the blocking, ang isa sa mga story ang in-upload namin ay yung response ni Luis Salandoni, the former NDFP chief negotiator, hinggil dun sa ATC resolution designating him as a terrorist. At nilabas din naman yun ng ibang media outfits, di ba?
Yes.
Yes, special report about that. Pero after that, the publication of those stories, ito na cyber attacks na kami. Doon na nag-start yung distributed denial of service attacks. So, iniisip lang namin, dahil kinoconnect na nila ngayon na porque ang letter ng NSC, ang sinite nila ay ATC resolutions designating these groups as terrorists, at wala naman kami dun sa ATC resolutions na yun. We were not included. Pero ang gusto nilang sabihin, sa allegation lang ni National Security Advisor Hennes Esperon, na kami daw ay tumutulong or supporting or affiliated with this organization. So, nakakabahala po yan kasi katulad ng ginawa sa aming cyber attack noong 2018 at nagtuloy-tuloy. Hanggang ngayon po, meron pa rin. Nag-start sa alternative media outfits and then tinarget din nila even the dominant media outfits. At nakita natin yan in recent months. So we're raising the alarm here that if they can do this to a small independent media outfit like Bulatlat, what could stop them from doing this also to other legitimate sources of information?
Actually, I personally, I don't really want to go into whether a story or an article seems to be inciting to sedition. Kasi if it is inciting to sedition, then charges should or could be filed against any organization. Diba? That's a consequence of any action that we do. My question to you would be that, have there been any legal moves against you, your group, in this regard, which would merit blocking? Kasi in the end, they're citing the anti-terrorism law. Although you have not been proscribed by the court, you have not been designated by the Anti-Terror Council, yet you have been blocked. So my question to you is that, have you been the subject of any legal action by the government with regard to this?
Wala po. Wala po kaming charges na kinakaharap. Wala kaming alam as of now na kaso na isinampalaban sa amin. In fact, kami po ang nag-file ng administrative case against NTF-ELCAC because of their red tagging, repeated red tagging of our media outfit. So nag-file po kami ng administrative case against Parlade and Badoy, I think late 2021. Wala pa pong usad yung kasong yun. So wala po kaming alam na charges filed against us.
Okay. Well, Len, on the other side of that, I wanna ask on the other side of Ed's question, kung ano yung legal legal charge, whatever the cases that have been filed against you. But I wanna ask also, because I wanna focus on the anti-terror law. You said you filed administrative cases against NTF-ELCAC, but in this particular case, particularly because the anti-terror law is being invoked, what are your plans with respect to the anti-terror law, given that it has already been challenged, but at the same time, the Supreme Court has also signaled we would welcome actual cases so that we could actually entertain this beyond being a facial challenge?
First, gusto po namin i-question yung NTC memo. So, we are planning to file a petition to stop the implementation of the memo. But also, we're looking into questioning again the Anti-Terrorism Act. Kasi yung very provisions, the same arguments na ni-raise ng NUJP sa kanyang petition against the law, ay nakikita na nating nangyayari ngayon. So parang, di ba, they assured us na, no, this would not be used against advocacy groups, this would not be used against journalists. But now we're seeing that happening now. Ang problema, magkakaiba yung tono nila, di ba? Parang, ang sabi ng Justice Secretary, the letter, the request came from the NSA, National Security Advisor, and not from the ATC. Pero sinasite nila yung ATA. So medyo ang labo nun, di ba? And then kahit tignan po natin yung Anti-Terrorism Act at kahit yung kanyang implementing rules and regulations, there's no provision at all for the taking down of websites. Ang meron po sa Cybercrime Prevention Act, pero hindi yan na-declare na constitutional. Kaya ang nakakagalit kasi walang due process, we were not even informed. Tapos parang marites lang, 'di ba, na naglista lang sila ng 27 websites at sinabing ganun na walang kahit isang ebidensyang pinipresent. And now they're telling us na, oh, you can avail of legal remedies. Parang nakakagalit naman talaga yun.
Luchi.
Teka lang, so may listahan pala. And you were in that list?
Yes po.
Okay, so how did you come to know that you were in that list? Were you informed by by the NTC? How did that information come to you? Or you just woke up one day and found out nga, bakit wala kami? I mean, why do we look like we're pulled down? Ganun ba yun?
June 17 po, we received several messages from our readers telling us they cannot access our website. So we asked for help from our web host, it's the Korea Media Foundation, and then they did several tests. And later on, they confirmed to us, a few hours after we made the request, confirmed to us that there's deliberate blocking. So it's a deliberate action on the part of the internet service provider. And a source gave us a copy of the NTC memo, which later on...
So it wasn't even addressed to you. It was given to someone, and that someone gave you a copy. So ganun yung kawalan ng process, kumbaga.
Yes po.
Okay.
And as early as June 20, we wrote to NTC.
Okay. So when did, so paano pumasok yung ATC rito? I mean, yung NTFL-CAC. Did you just, because it came out in the news 2 days ago, and Esperon had a statement. So paano, ano yun? Because I would imagine that it was NTC, it would be NTC that would come out with a statement, no? So paano nyo nalaman na, how did it come to be an NTFL-CAC move after all?
The NTC memo was based on the letter sent by Hermogenes Esperon Jr., who happens also to be the ATC vice chairperson. But he wrote that letter on his capacity supposedly as NSA. Kaya nga, ang gulo po nila, di ba? Parang, ano ba talaga? Sabihin yung ATA, tapos, pero NTC yung naglabas ng memo. Tapos wala naman kaming kaso. We're not even designated.
I see. Yeah. Tapos no particular article or articles cited.
Yes po.
Ganun ba yun?
Yes po. Just a mere list and allegations.
Okay.
By any chance, is it possible that you're supporting illegal cockfighting, as it says in the subject matter line?
O nga, natawa kami dyan. Parang, nagkikisabong ba tayo? Alam niyo po minsan ang bulatlat na pagkakamalang porn site dahil daw dun sa pangalan, di ba? Pero
Pangalan, yes.
pinagtatawanan na lang namin, isabong na pala tayo ngayon. So, sloppy po, di ba? Parang, tapos maglilista lang kayo ng 27 websites, including yung isa, from India pa. And then yung isa, US-based. Parang ang labo talaga. Pero yung impact kasi niya, very real. Yung readers namin are losing access to the content we're providing. So this is clearly prior restraint against protected speech.
Len, final question na lang, beyond the blocking of the website, what else are you experiencing? You mentioned your reporters, you mentioned your editorial team. Are you experiencing any other things by way of, this government's concern that you are affiliated with terror organizations?
Well, tuloy-tuloy po yung cyber attack sa amin. It's just that our web host is effectively mitigating the attacks. Second, we assume that we're under surveillance, no? Kasi marami naman sa red tag, ganun eh. And even ordinary journalists are subjected to surveillance, di ba? So we're taking precautions also. Opo, tama po yun. So meron silang monitoring.
Daming follower to.
Nag-VPN na ako.
Okay. But Len, seriously, sorry, one last question, clarification na lang, because I just tried it. Bulatlat.org. Is accessible. Yeah, what does
That's
it mean?
a mirror site.
But what does
It's
it
the
mean
mirror
for
site.
Yes, but what does it mean for your operations? What does it mean for your editorial work? What does it mean for your readers? And this whole notion na blocked kami, sabihin ng gobyerno, bulatlat.org nga active eh. What does it all? Why is this still up?
Okay po, bulatlat.com po yung aming talagang URL. And when Curium learned about this DNS blocking, they set up this mirror site. So it's a duplicate of our original website.
Okay.
So that our readers can still access our content. And Reporters Sans Frontiers also has a mirror site of Bulatlat. So dalawa na po yung mirror sites namin. Kaya tuloy-tuloy lang din po yung aming trabaho. Kaya lang, syempre yung hassle dito na kagaya po natin, di ba mga journalists, would rather publish stories, work on our stories than being, maging subject ng balita. Kaya lang we are forced to, by circumstances, of course, to expose this blatant, brazen, unconstitutional move by government forces.
But Len, you know that eventually they are also going to go after the mirror sites until this
Yes.
order is overturned. At the same time, I checked the NTC website. The NTC says that all its orders can only be appealable to the Supreme Court. So you also have
Yes,
that.
we're expecting that po. I think it's just a matter of time, no? Bago siguro nila ma-block din yung bulatlat.org. So we're trying to look at other options. And of course, any help from other media outfits would be very welcome. So iniisip po namin ibang platforms ba yan? Ano bang klase ng method of distribution yung pwede naming tingnan. Ang social media platforms naman, ang hirap din kasi ang kalaban natin dyan is the tyranny of algorithm. Binabaon tayo sa sa newsfeed, di ba? So hindi pa po rin namin na alam yung definite na solutions dito, but we're trying to look at possibilities.
Okay. Ms. Ulea, maraming salamat po. Len Ulea is the managing editor of Bulatlat.
Ingat, Len.
Salamat din po, the Chief.
Salamat, Len.
Good night.
Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back to the Chiefs here in One News. Joining us now via Zoom is Philippine National Taxi Operators Association President Attorney Jesus Bong Suntay. Sir, magandang gabi and welcome to the Chiefs.
Hi, good evening. Magandang gabi rin
Magandang gabi
sa
po.
inyong lahat.
Magandang gabi, sir. Sir, the last time we talked, nasa 12 pesos na ang tinaas ng presyo ng gasolina. Tumaas pa lalo ngayong linggo. And the last time we talked, you were talking about how so many taxi operators or taxi drivers already giving up sa kanilang profesyon. How is it now? How is it today?
It went from bad to worse. Kagaya ng sinabi mo, last time we spoke, 12 pesos yung tinaas. But if you really look at it, the last fare increase which was given to the taxi sector was way back noong 2017 when prices of gasoline was hovering between 38 to 40 pesos.
Yeah.
Now, nasa 80 to 84 pesos na yung presyo ng gasolina. So it's doubled. talagang...
Sir, saan yung 80 to 80 pesos? Teka, saan yan?
90-something na, sir.
Saan yan? Teka. Yung iba pinapagasan ninyo.
Fleet yan, fleet.
Okay.
Sige sir, go ahead.
So,
Sorry.
but the thing is, it has more than doubled. Kaya it's not surprising that a lot of operators and a lot of taxi drivers have chosen to not bring out taxi units anymore. In fact, marami akong kasama sa industry who have now operators who have chosen to either sell their units or not operate them at all because kinakain lang sila ng overhead expenses eh. You know, walang utilization of the unit is low. Tapos nun, you still have to of course maintain people, maintain mechanics, maintain dispatchers, maintain cashiers. So the situation has really gone worse.
Yes, sir. Sir, but can you give us numbers
We
or
really
percentages? Can you give us numbers or percentages? By how many percent thereabouts?
You know, way back nung March 2020, utilization rate was down to between 25 to 30%. This was brought about by the various lockdowns caused by the pandemic, various travel restrictions, and then nung Christmas 2021, when restrictions were eased, we thought na gaganda na makabawi yung mga operators and drivers. But the sad thing is the war in Russia and Ukraine happened and it triggered the continuous increase in the price of fuel. Ngayon, sa taxi industry, for the fleet operators, maswerte na yung may 30% doon sa fleet ang umaandar.
Mr. Suntay, kasama na po natin si Ami Pamintuan. She's joining us from the Philippine Star Office in Manila. Ami.
Yeah, hi Ami. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Suntay. Mr. Suntay, siguro you can tell us kung ano yung paghihirap ngayon ng sector. Magkano ba kinikita ngayon ng mga drivers, for example, compared to bago nagtaasan ng gusto yung gasolina? Kasi sa jeepney driver, talaga ayaw na nilang lumabas eh. Hindi na daw nila kaya. Wag na lang daw sila mag-driver.
Ganyan talaga yung sitwasyon. In the entire transport industry, whether it be tricycle drivers, jeepney drivers, bus drivers, taxi drivers, pare-pareho yan. Alam mo, ang taxi driver before the pandemic would earn, ang take-home niyan would be between 1,200 to 1,500 pesos a day. Ngayon, maswerte na makakauwi ng 400. Yung masisipag na driver, maswerte nang makauwi ng 400 pesos. So a lot of them iniisip na either mag-family driver, and then yung mga iba kaya naman nasusustain because some of the taxi units in Metro Manila are using LPG, and LPG prices while tumaas is still half the price of gasoline. So yun yung naging saving grace ng ibang taxi drivers.
So sa estimate nyo, mga ilang percentage na kaya ng yung mga taxi ngayon, sa Metro Manila lang, ang ayaw ng tumakbo?
Ami, dito siguro sa Metro Manila, from before the pandemic, meron tayong mga around 27,000 cabs going around Metro Manila. Ngayon, palagay ko, they're down to around siguro nasa 15,000 at certain times.
Yeah.
And is that something that's experienced by the TNVS as well? Pareho ba yan?
Well, alam mo, yung TNVS has higher rates. But I'm sure nabawasan din yung income ng mga drivers ng TNVS, but because mas konti yung mga binabayaran nila ng mga supervision fees and everything and regulatory fees, so mas nagso-survive sila bukod sa mas mataas yung rate which they are charging. So yung ating mga traditional taxis, yan ang nagsasuffer. But I cannot say na hindi nagsasuffer rin yung mga TNVS, mga TNVS drivers. I think they're experiencing the same thing.
Yes, and Mr. Suntay, to that point, I also don't want to diminish yung impact ng pagtaas ng presyo sa inyong lahat. But I'm also just curious on what the pandemic itself, even without the oil crisis, it has done to your industry. Because a lot of people, never mind the lockdown, but even after the economy started to open up, a lot of people were still staying at home. A lot of people have cut down on their transit. They're going to the office maybe less than half the time than they were before. What's the impact, even outside of the price crisis? What is the impact of this new lifestyle that people are clinging on to of hybrid work or stay at home on the industry?
On the industry, we experience a reduction of passengers because of the pandemic. Siguro the reduction of passengers was up to 80% during the time of the pandemic, and that continued for over a year.
Hindi, kaya nga. So, but then after the lockdown, and people traffic na ulit. But then at the same time, people were still staying home. Yung status ngayon, even if you were to take away the factor of ang taas ng presyo, it's not worth it to go, nalulugi ang mga driver and so on. But just the demand, what happened to the demand in this situation? We're not quite post-pandemic, but in this situation that people are allowed to go out, but they are choosing to choose hybrid work.
Okay, ganyan na. During the height of the pandemic, reduction of passengers was up to 80%. Now na restrictions has eased, pero tama yung sinabi mo, a lot of people have been accustomed to working at home. So yung demand for taxis, I think bumaba by 55%.
Oh.
Because a lot of people are still working from home. Tapos yung mga ibang tao nasanay yung ordering things online instead of going to the malls, going to the restaurants. So yung demand for this public transportation bumaba rin.
So kumbaga nagdo-double whammy kayo. I mean, on the one hand, yung demand has gone down. On the other hand, yun nga, fuel prices are so high.
Triple whammy. Di ba, nagsimula sa pandemic, tapos nun, bumaba yung demand, tapos ngayon, high fuel cost. Now, that's why it's so hard, it's so difficult now for the taxi industry to look for the light at the end of the tunnel. Dahil talagang napakahirap. Although, of course, there's still a need for public transport and yung door-to-door service being provided by the taxis. Now, hopefully, if the petition for provisional fare increase, which the industry, the taxi sector has been asking, pag nag-grant yan, magkaroon ng konting reprieve naman yung mga drivers. And as I was saying, some of the only saving grace of some of the units, taxi units that you see around going around Metro Manila is because some of them are still using auto LPG, which is 50% cheaper than gasoline at this point.
Yung assistance naman sa sector ninyo, nakakarating ba dun sa mga beneficiaries? Kasi sa jeepney sector, hindi daw sila lahat nakakakuha.
Ami, I think that is felt hindi lang sa jeepney, pero sa taxi rin, hindi lahat nakakakuha. Now, ang problema pa niyan, you have to look at it this way. Ang fuel subsidy na ibinibigay is 6,500 pesos. Ang nadagdag sa fuel expense ng driver, kung kunyari gasolina yung ginagamit nila, is 100% increase. So imagine sa 80 pesos na lang ang fuel expense nila for 30 days tumaas ng 48,000 pesos a month. So kahit na bigyan mo ng 6,500 na fuel subsidy, meron ka pa ring 41,500 pesos na additional expense on the part of the driver. Parang walang effect yung fuel subsidy. para sa taxi drivers. And if you really look at the rationale for the fuel subsidy, naalala mo nagsimula yan when train law was implemented, tapos noon nagkaroon ng mga lockdown as a form of assistance doon sa mga driver. The national government decided, sige, bigyan natin ng fuel subsidy. Tapos noon, nung na-approve sa Congress namin yung bayanihan, tinuloy yan. Pero those were one-time fuel subsidies. It was a temporary relief being given to the drivers. Pero ngayon, hindi naman pwedeng tuloy-tuloy yung subsidy. Hindi rin kayang ibigay ng gobyerno na buwan-buwan yan. And kung kukumputin nga natin, dahil nga kunyari sa taxi sector ang nadagdag dahil dumoble yung presyo ng gasolina, ang nadagdag sa expense ng mga drivers is 48,000 pesos a month. So yung 6,500 na fuel subsidy kahit na buwan-buwan, assuming kayang ibigay buwan-buwan ng gobyerno, is of very little effect para sa kanila.
So anong mas malaking impact? Kung isuspend yung excise tax on fuel, yun ba malaking impact nun?
Well, ang impact ng suspension, immediately bababa ng 8 pesos, at least 8 pesos yung presyo ng gasolina. Pero kagaya nga ng sinasabi ng ating incoming president, parang he's not really keen into suspending yung excise tax dahil at this point kailangan ng gobyerno ng revenues coming from that excise tax, at the government at this point cannot afford to do away with that revenue stream. Yun yung problema.
Okay, Attorney Bong Suntay. Sir, maraming salamat po. Babantayan po namin ang petisyon nyo. We will certainly follow the plight of your industry. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Attorney
sir.
Suntay,
you.
of course, is the president of the Philippine National Taxi Operators Association. We will pause for a break. The chiefs will be right back. Welcome back to the Chiefs. Ako po si Roby Alampay. Kasama natin si Ami Pamintuan, Luchi Cruz-Valdes, and Ed Lingao. And from the transport crisis, pumunta naman tayo sa food crisis. Joining us for our last guest is Bong Inchong, President of the United Broilers Raisers Association. Mr. Inchong, welcome po to the Chiefs.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am and sir.
Good evening, sir.
And sirs, it's the United Broiler Raisers Association.
Broiler.
Forgive me for correcting you, but my members are at it.
Opo. Pasensya na rin po. Okay. But sir, meron ako kanina binalita namin sa the big story nga itong shortage sa mga manok. Pero ang gusto kong isangguni sa inyo ngayon, naintindihan natin shortage and we want to get into that. Pero meron akong personal na gustong isangguni sa inyo eh. Bukod sa shortage, last week, nag-lunch kami ng misis ko sa bahay, nakabili kaming manok. Pero ang liliit nung all chicken legs but all small. Parang manok ba yung nakain namin? Sigurado ba kaming manok yung nakain namin? And I guess the more serious question is, what's happening there?
Which one do you want me to answer first?
Well, the shortage is one, but also, bakit merong maliliit na manok na lumalabas sa palengke?
We're careful about the term shortage.
Okay.
For the industry. We define it based on our experience in 2003. In 2003, no chicken in the groceries. Very problematic situation in the wet markets. And also no chicken in the fast food and other institutional buyers. The reason for this, normally businessmen on their own will adjust to expected demand, to rational expectations. And the rational expectation after the feast of the elections, you will have lower or really low demand, given that we're still coming out, or hopefully we are coming out of the COVID demand conditions. And we adjusted production to adjust to the expected demand. And unfortunately, the performance of the flocks was affected by the quality of the feeds, because we're having difficulty getting quality raw materials for feeds, for corn and especially soya, because the nature of agri-commodities, of feed raw materials, is such that the more expensive it is, in all likelihood, the poorer the quality. Kasi yes, ma'am, because remember, these are agricultural products, and when supply is short, even the poor quality soya or corn and other raw materials will have some buyers, just to be able to push through with your production. And that is the reason for the poor performance. And that is also the explanation, sir, for your experience with smaller legs, chicken legs.
Okay. So the quality of the feeds is, so even the access to the feeds.
Yes, sir. And also normally we can handle this type of weather during the second and third quarters. Unfortunately, the normal adjustment to such a weather condition would be good or what we call high density feeds, meaning high quality, high nutrition feeds. Unfortunately, we cannot do that right now because of really we have a feed quality problem, and on top of the fact that it is more costly.
Wow. Sir, so the problem of quality of the problem of the quality of the feeds is as a result of the weather problem, or is it because of other factors?
Remember, sir, soya is imported.
Yes, sir.
And corn, we prefer local corn, and unfortunately, it's a long story, but the problem is the corn farmers for the last 2 years, they have no confidence in producing because the ASF had a huge impact. The African swine fever had a huge impact on their market. Dati kasi malaki ang market yung hog industry, and nawala, nabira ng ASF, and they were left back in 2020 with the situation. They have so much supplies, they had so much production, and abruptly you had this situation wherein a significant portion of your market nawala because of ASF. And they had to adjust also to the new demand conditions. And because of that, corn right now, local corn is at 5-year high, historical high in terms of yearly averages. The soya is also at 5-year high.
Sir, sorry, 5-year high in prices or in output?
Prices.
In prices.
Yes, sir.
May impact din ba sa inyo yung Ukraine conflict? Kasi
Definitely,
yung mga supply chain, mga gaano kaya katindi yung disruption sa supplies niyo?
I do not have a number for that, ma'am, because the nature of agriculture, ma'am, because we do not have a data system by government. Tansyahan yan, ma'am, as one of your colleagues in the industry told me, kayo pala, sir, ay tansya meter pala kayo? Hindi pala kayo scientific. And that is true.
Kahit sa soya, hindi kaya. Kasi sabi nyo, karamihan ng
ma'am,
natin.
yes, ma'am. Kung sa soya may, but sa soya, Ukraine is about 10 to 20% of the supply. But remember, the industry, because we're chicken, we prefer US soya. Nagmahal yung US soya. Ang nanggagaling, ma'am, ang sinosource sa Ukraine would be feed wheat. And yun ang ginagamit naman ng mga hog raisers. Because we in the broiler industry, we really need yellow corn and soya, especially corn, because ang production cycle namin, ma'am, ngayon ay 30 to 35 days tapos na. From loading to harvest, 35 days tapos na yan. During normal times. Then you clean, then by the 50th or 60th day, kumpleto na yung cycle nyo. Ang problema ngayon, ma'am, dahil nga sa bagal ng laki, affected din yung production cycle, yung kanya na-affected yung supply. Regarding the corn, ma'am, we prefer yellow corn kasi high energy siya, mas stable ang quality ng local corn. Unfortunately, walang confidence, ma'am, yung farmers because this ay matatapos. Our DA has a propensity to announce special importations.
Yes.
And if you are a corn farmer, when your fertilizer costs are this high, record high also, and your Department of Agriculture would announce special importations without some assurance, giving you some assurance that you will not end up with a disaster at harvest time, then that farmer will find another crop.
Yeah. It goes precisely, sir, to what you were saying. You keep saying the confidence of our farmers. But speaking of the Department of Agriculture, alam niyo naman po, ang papasok na Department of Agriculture Secretary, pinakamataas sa gobyerno. Sabi niya, highest priority, obviously. So, incoming President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. himself is saying, uunahin ko ang agrikultura. Ano po ang panawagan niyo sa incoming government?
And that is it. It is not just a matter of the budget. There are a lot of things to correct there, and the first thing that the president should do would be to take a look at the laws He is the head of the executive department. He is supposed to execute the laws. But unfortunately, the sector, not only our sector, the chicken sector, but the entire agri-fisheries, there is no rule of law for us. It is rule of economic doctrines by a few economists. And that is the reason where we are in this current situation. Ang dami yung batas ho hindi pinatupad na napaka-basic. Hindi lang ho kami nag-iingay noon because the past secretaries were making serious efforts in terms of the budget and in terms of implementing those laws. Unfortunately, they did not succeed. Mas magaling talaga ho sa argumentation apparently ang NEDA and DOF. There were other priorities. And at that time, until recently, the OFW remittances, the BPO revenues, tourism, these revenues were able to save the economy. And supply chains at that time, in the immediate past, were very stable. Unfortunately, right now, I think for the next 5-10 years, we will have an interesting situation in terms of supply chains.
Can you cite some of those laws?
Question na lang. Kailan daw, ay, sorry.
Can you cite lang sample ng law na hindi ka mo na-implement ng maayos?
Ma'am, very basic. For example, under the WTO, we are allowed, if not expected, to have a quarantine system for animal safety and the safety of our crops. It means an inspection area. Before you pay your tariffs, you must go through quarantine. That is the standard in the world. Dito sa atin baliktad. You pay your tariffs, pasok yung product mo, and the inspection supposedly will happen in the cold storage of the importer, which that situation has been very problematic. And also, the more macro would be the Agriculture Fisheries Modernization Act, Section 13, which called for a plan. And that plan should be based on consultations with the sectors and other government agencies. And another very basic thing, so that you can update plans and businessmen can make decisions, and so that I do not have to rely on the tansya meter. Sections 38 to 45 required under that law that there should be a national information network with so much data, not only on the number of farmers, but on international, for example, international prices. You can address to a certain extent unfair trade and smuggling, and you can implement your laws on trade remedies. Unfortunately, there is no interest in that because there were even the secretary there now, belatedly, is declaring that the sector has been neglected all these years, although he is part of the problem in recent years, if not the major part of the problem.
Wala pala
Okay, sir. Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
huling tanong na lang. So, kailan po babalik sa favorite fast food ko ang fried chicken? Kasi not available ngayon.
We will know if it is just a glitch, a problem in production in the next 30 to 60 days. And hopefully this will not be like 2003.
Tagal.
Ma'am, agriculture yan, ma'am. Buhay kasi, ma'am. Hindi yan manufacturing. But remember, ma'am, ma'am, kasi may pressure sa amin from yung shift, may increasing shift kasi, ma'am, from pork to chicken. Nahihirapan din kami. Kasi lalo nagmamahal yung pork eh. And in fact, as a sign nga, nung araw, ma'am, yung mga ganyan kaliliit na manok na sinasabi kanina ni sir, hindi na yung mabibili eh. Pinamimigay na lang yan farm eh. It is the sign of the times that chickens of that size nabebenta pa. Nung araw, hindi na mabebenta ho yan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Insyong, sir, maraming salamat po.
Ay, maraming salamat din po. Pasensya na ho sa ilaw.
Thank you po.
Thank you, sir.
Salamat po.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bong Insyong is president of the United Broiler Raisers Association. And that will be all for this edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. I'm Roby Alampay.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Luchi Cruz-Valdes of News 5.
I'm Lingao, and we are One News.